Hello, and welcome to In the Roud. Greetings and salutations, dear listeners. My name is Matt Quinn, and this is In the Roud, a folk song podcast. Join me as we travel through the world of traditional folk song, one song per episode, in the order they appear in the Roud Index. Each episode will feature two guests, one providing an historical look at the song, while the other will be a singer from the folk music scene to talk about their own version of the song. Another relatively unknown one this week. As such, we don't have a dedicated singer guest segment, but like last week, we have a shorter episode featuring one chat with returning guest Helen Lindley, who has delved into the history of this song for us and provided us a new setting of the song too. So let's get going. This week's song is Roud 33, Child Ballad number 41. That's the song called Hind Etin. So let's hear my chat with this week's guest, Helen Lindley. Well, hello, Helen Lindley again.
Hello, Matt, and how are you this fine June morning?
Oh, it is now June the 4th we're recording. This is a week ahead of the episode going out. It's June, and it's not quite as sunny as it was 2 days ago, but it's, grey and cloudy, but feeling like June. And not too bad. I'm back on my diet. Not that people need to know this, but I'm consequently, as I told you a minute ago, I am consuming less food, so I'm sleeping better and consequently more awake, but I'm consuming less food, and therefore my body isn't used to that low level of energy intake, and consequently I am simultaneously more awake and more tired, which is a strange combination. But occupying my brain with work, in this case, Hind Etin, it's all good. It's good to have you back. You were on last week for KMPK, and here we are again with another not quite completely unknown child ballad. As we'll come to later on, there are two that we know of, modern recordings of this, but nothing on the field recording side. This hasn't been sung in a long time, but there have been a couple of attempts on the English folk scene to sort of rejig it a bit and bring it out again. We'll come to them later on. Hind Etin, Roud 33, which is child ballad number 41, where Steve Roud jumped ahead in the child ballads here to child 41 after 33 last time. Obviously, he wasn't doing the child ballads. He's doing them in order, but not sequentially. So at some point, we'll come to child 34, I suppose, and 5. But here we are. Child Ballad 41, Roud 33, Hind Etin. Give us the plot of this song for starters. What are we dealing with here?
Oh, well, it's a bit weird, actually, because the three versions that exist in Child have got...
Are they all quite different?
Yeah, they're similar. They've got similarities, but I mean,
because you get Hind Etin, don't you? And then they've all got different titles, haven't they? The three in Child.
Yeah.
A is Young Akin or Akin. B is Hind Etin, and then C is Young Hastings.
Yeah, I mean they're all the same bloke. In some versions, he's more enchanted than in others. There's the king's daughter or some other lady goes and lives with Akin in the woods, either by enchantment or of her own volition, and she lives there, has children, and then escapes. That's the sort of commonality within the three versions. However, within that, in two of the versions, she escapes because she's worried that the children aren't christened, and so she wants to get them christened. And in the other, she goes back home, and then Akin comes with her later. So it's there's almost like those elements of like the Tam Lin type story.
Oh yeah. We'll be coming to that in 2 episodes' time.
We will indeed.
Yeah.
But as it is with a lot of these songs, I think there are some where it's, well, he's being really mean and keeping her against her will, and in others where she's this willful woman. And I like the one where she's a willful woman, to be honest, where she decides what she's doing.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's how the stories are running, really. I
With varying degrees of length of song.
Yes, I mean one's 54 verses,
Oh, lovely.
and some are a little repetitive, and so although I did actually, I mean I've still kept mine to a considerable number of verses. I think when recorded it's gone to 6.5 minutes, but it's a ballad, so that's what we expect, isn't it?
Yeah, 54 verses just brings to mind that Tom Lehrer joke about folk songs and singing people who listen to folk songs are the kind of people who find singing 50 verses on top of Old Smoky twice as enjoyable as singing 25.
Yes, that's
And
it.
and and so yeah, there's I the longest ballad I think I've ever sung is 33. I think Gordon Hall had a 33 verse version of Barbara Allen.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Yeah, I think I've got it down. The way I tend to simplify them is because they're 54 four-line verses.
Yeah.
Well, they're not very long verses. So
Well, if
you've
you,
actually really got 27.
yeah, if you've got a melody that has like an A and a B part, then you can have 27 longer verses, and it doesn't
Yeah.
seem it's still 27 verses though.
Yeah.
But
Well,
but less.
I did an A and a B, and then I've ended up with, I think I've got 12 in total, but they're longer lines. But
Yeah,
it,
that's the Young Aiken version. The Hind Etin one has 19 verses, and the Young Hastings has 14. So they're getting shorter and shorter.
yeah, I think it's sometimes down to who could remember what, isn't it, with a lot of these sources.
Indeed so. Indeed so. So what this as we've pretty much just said already, this isn't a particularly popular or common song. It doesn't, aside from a couple of revival versions later on, this appears again like a couple of ones we covered last season, Gil Brenton and Earl Linton. This appears to have basically died out
Yeah,
for
it does
quite a long
seem to have
time.
done. I think it's got common themes with some other songs, so some songs stayed, and then if there are too many similar ones, then the others, go by the by.
Indeed. And so what certainly there's three in Child, and in Bronson the tunes for the child ballads we've got two, neither of which correlate to the three that are in Child, which is
Yes.
unusual. So at least we've got five different versions here, all sort of things that are linked to it. So how far back can we trace any version of Hind Etin of this
Well, it
song?
depends if you believe the stories of it's got Scandinavian roots, I suppose. And we know from our studies how much the Victorians did love to link them all back to some sort of ancient Scandinavian. They either linked them all back to something Scandinavian or they linked them back to Robin Hood, didn't they? That tends to be the form for a
Yeah,
goodly number of
the
folk songs.
Arthurian legend, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, well, looking at, I mean, some of the tunes, there's mentions of something in Buchan from 1828, and then Christie's got 1881.
Oh, those are the two in Bronson.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah, sorry, Christie, 1881, but then yeah, text from Buchan's concluding stanzas 1828. But if we could see that, would be quite nice. And then
yes,
the other version says the Greek manuscript,
which is like 25.
1925.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we've got, I mean, obviously the fact that it's in Child means somebody was sending him these songs a long time ago. But quite how old it's like a lot of these ones, we don't know, do we? To be honest.
no, it's not, and there aren't. Yeah, there's no dates on the or although actually the Buchan one. Hang on, I'm just losing my page here. The tunes in Bronson don't relate to Child particularly, but the text that, because one is from Christie and it says text from Buchan's concluding stanza. So the text that Bronson has used to go along with the Christie tune in Bronson is taken from Child, the concluding standards of Child A, but then so there is a link there, Buchan's Ballads of the North of Scotland, but then it's yeah, apart from that, there's not much of a link to it.
No,
But
it's just say it's because of the as the subject matter. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the subject matter as such. It's just that there are plenty of other songs, with an enchanted character or an enchanted instrument. And at some point, if you've got a lot of similar songs, it's the same as happens today. Some songs just get left behind.
so yeah, what's there's almost nothing to say about this in a
It
way.
is one of those songs. I mean, I when I worked with it, because obviously I hadn't worked with this until you said, "Helen, will you work on this song?"
Yeah,
Because as you throw me a challenge like that, I'm going to say yes because I always do. Because there's nothing I love more than the challenge of a song nobody's singing, and let's see if we can do something with it. And I couldn't. I actually did. Once I'd worked with it, I actually really liked it. I have changed it. It's there are three versions, and I've took the themes from all of them. I've kept most of the version I have created is taken from version A, where it's Lady Margaret and it's young Aiken, and they're in Elmond's Wood. So I have stuck reasonably well to that. I've just extracted a lot of stuff that we probably don't need, and cast that out. But the in that one, the reason I liked that one was because it was more she was there because she wanted to be there.
sure, yeah, yeah.
There's a certain element of there may have been some enchantment, but there's nothing to suggest she didn't want to be enchanted. Basically, given what we know about a king's daughter back in the day, she would be married off to someone she probably didn't want to be married to. So running away seemed a good option.
Right,
So
yeah,
and as it does mention she's the king's daughter, and I have worked with other similar songs where that has happened, or certainly ladies of rank. It's there did seem to be that was a common theme within folk song that they would run away so they didn't have to then marry someone they didn't like the look of. There's on this one, yes, she heard a tune, so there's obviously that element of enchantment taking place. But then she stayed and had seven children. And it's only
sure.
when the eldest son sees her crying and asks his dad about it, and he said, "Oh yeah, well, and there was no secret about it. It was like, oh yeah, well, she was born of high degree, and then she discovered me, and then is beginning to regret her folly because we're really poor."
Ah, yes,
And that seemed to be the emphasis seemed to be very much on she stayed there because they've got a family and she does still love him, even though it's a hard life. Whereas in version B, I think she's kept underground near the tree root. She's kept in a cave. And in the other one, or actually the B and C versions, it seems the thing she's most upset about isn't that she misses her family and it's a hard life. It's that the children haven't been christened. And so that centres more on that aspect of escaping to go to church.
right.
So taking all that in hand, I didn't like the idea of her being kept and a bit of the Stockholm syndrome that then Aiken comes and lives with her back at the King's Court because that just seemed a bit creepy. And I thought, well, actually, if she wanted to be there in the first place, and then she does sing it, she does say in the song, "I can't eat or drink till my husband comes." And I've seen my sister and my mother. I thought actually she's probably gone. She's finally gone home. They've accepted her back home, and now she's thinking, well, I actually would like my husband back, and I'll see what the family say about it.
Right.
And then they all move back. They all enjoy living together. When the king dies, she becomes queen. So it was bought that the elements of the song suggested that she was forgiven for running away, and she did get to stay with the man that she'd married, even though he wasn't a high degree man. And yeah, it sort of made it into a perfectly nice folk song.
Yeah, that's fair.
there are the two tune versions that we've got in Bronson. Um, the one that is the Christie one, I looked at it. It didn't go with the theme that I was using within the song. It was a bit too jolly for me, to be honest. I do sing a few jolly folk songs, but I am rather known for setting them slightly more sort of either in a minor key or, you know, jolly's okay for when you're singing about May.
Fair enough.
I tend not to opt for that a lot of the time. Then there was the Grieg one, and I played that on the fiddle to sort of see how I felt about it. And then I tend to do that, and I leave tunes alone for a bit and see what my brain does to them. And literally the next day, it was sort of humming something similar, but went with a song and I was happy with. But it was repetitious because there were only really two lines of melody. And then gradually I sort of worked with some other ones. I took a few from Playford to see how they felt, which is another thing I do. I tend to look through things like Playford or the Quantox tune book that Rob Harbron edited.
Oh, the William Winters book. Yeah,
That's
I've
it,
got that.
yeah. And I've got several others that have got the titles of courtesy of Sam Sweeney, who said, "Oh yeah, you might like this one." So you can know the Great Northern tune Book and all that. There's all these tune books that have lots of tunes that we don't play, and sometimes you can find a gem in there. And I was working with one, but I kept not being able to centre it properly. Get a good tonal centre on it. And so in the end, my brain just wrote then a B part that I was happy with, and I sang it through, a few times as you do. Lived with it for a week, and then thought, yeah, that sort of sits well. And so we ended up then with a complete song.
Very good. Very good.
So there are elements. Let's just say it has been very much influenced by the originals.
Yeah. So I'd just like to double back slightly to other versions because although we said, yeah, there's only three in Child and two tunes in Bronson, there are some other versions dotted around. If you go onto the Roud index itself, and I typed in 33 into the search by Roud number field, 29 entries for this one, and nothing in the broadside index. Just the 29 entries in the folk song index. But then, as we know, you have to take into account a lot of duplicates, triplicates in the Roud index for times when, if the same version turns up in different publications. And so I did look at it, and there's online index. There's three, so three of those 29 are just links to the entries in different things, like the traditional ballad index entry for the song, the Vaughan Williams Memorial Library song subject index, and that sort of thing. So that's already three that aren't actual versions of the song. So take it down to 26, and then of that we know that 26 we know that there's three. We know there's three in Child, two in Bronson, and then there are. So we also find there are three, what looks like three versions in the James Madison Carpenter manuscript collection, all from different singers, I think. Belle Duncan, Miss Bethia Fowley, and someone else I can't find the name. And they all start with different opening lines, which indicates three different versions. We've got Lady Margaret or Lady Margaret sat in her bower door. We've got Fair Isabel sat in her bower door, and first line, my mother's eyes are always wet. I wonder how the rest of that one goes. I'm not sure what that first line is, but there's that, and so there's three versions there. And if you go to the rest of the index, we've got the three ones in Child, two in Bronson, but one of the ones in Child is the Buchan one, and so there's an entry for Buchan's Ancient Ballads and Songs, and there's Buchan's Scottish Ballad Book. So they're probably the same version as the A in Child. So that's three entries for the same version. So
It's how it goes, isn't
although
it?
it's 29, it's probably more like seven or something in
That's the
the end.
thing.
Yeah.
And interestingly, with those versions that are mentioned, like Lady Margaret or Lady Margot, there's two of the versions in Child have got Margaret. There's either Lady Margaret or May Margaret. Now, May is most likely a contraction of maid or maiden.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like how the name, if often that when Mary appears in song, that is another old word. Mary was another word for maiden
Right. Yeah. Of
within
course.
within old texts. So there are a lot of times when these names probably were just the lady or the maiden. But
In-
obviously, as time has gone on, she's been given a name, which is good. But the one that talks of the eyes being wet, well, that is clearly mentioned in version A, because I've put that in my version, where Acon's eldest son has noticed that his mother's cheeks are always wet.
okay.
He
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
rarely seen them dry. And that's when Aiken says, "Yeah, that's because she discovered me and then didn't marry a wealthy
Okay,
prince,
because
came
then
with me."
that's a link to the third in the James Madison collection, the Young
Yeah,
Aiken. The first line: "My mother's eyes are always wet. She's always crying." Can you
yes,
see?
yeah. So, mine's got yes. I mean the original. Let me just see. Give me a second. My mother's. Where is she? I mean, I've translated it as my mother's cheeks are wet. I see my mother's cheeks are wet. I have rarely seen them dry. I wondered why my mother was continually to cry, which is lifted. I've just only tweaked that very slightly from the original. It's in the A version. It's I see my mother's cheeks a wheat. I never can see them dry, and I wonder what aileth my mother to mourn continually.
Right.
So it's obviously at some point the A version has been sung, but where of course with a lot of these old singers, it will depend very much on what version they heard and what they've remembered.
Quite so. And then we've got young Hastings as well, which
Yes, well he's in C.
well
Hastings
that
is the chap in C.
exactly that's the version C in Child, and
Yeah,
consequently there are two entries in Bronson, I think, or at least one entry in Bronson, which is Buchan's Ancient Ballads and Songs, which
yeah,
is where Child got it from. So it's the two entries of the same song. Oh well, like I to ride in a mist.
yes,
That's the
yes.
one,
It's
isn't it?
the mist is very much in the C version.
And shoot in a northern wind, and far better a lady to steal that's come of a noble kin.
Yes,
And there's 14 verses there. And
yes,
Child noted that Motherwell's copies, oh, I think that version turned up in Motherwell as well. Motherwell's copies exhibit five or six slight variations from Buchan.
yeah.
So yeah, if I do a very quick,
In version C, for some reason, she's got a harp with her.
yeah. Oh, there we go. Motherwell's minstrelsy, ancient and modern, includes young Hastings the groom.
Yeah,
So
that's the
so
one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So there's that as well. So
Yes.
um, yeah, that's yes. Anyway, not much more to say on that front. I was just pointing that out, but yeah, and so. There's basically, as we've said, there are no field recordings of this. This just wasn't sung for a long time. Although it begs the question, was it ever sung really in the first place? These could just be concoctions by someone and then printed in Buchan. Unless Buchan actually did note from the singing of someone who got it from her grandfather or whatever.
Yes, I mean there is always that difficulty with these ones that aren't sung, isn't there? That maybe there has been, a bit like how we might do. We might write a song today, and it's known to us and some people in our circle, but we might not necessarily, it might not be mainstream. And that doesn't mean
Yeah,
to say the song didn't exist, and it might mean only someone else down the same pub has sung it.
indeed so.
That hasn't changed. Music has always done that. There have been, well-known songs, and the way that Child collected, of course, he was sent songs by other people. So we don't know. We will never know how widely or not some of these songs were sung.
Yes,
which is what makes them
indeed.
interesting.
I just realised I've just been consulting the page from our friend in collaboration, Sing Yonder. This song is in volume 3 of Sing Yonder, page 10. If anyone has their copy to hand,
Volume 4.
volume 4, not 3. It's
Yeah.
season 4. And
33. Yes. Yeah.
yes, very good. Well done, me. I'm very
Yes.
tired.
And
And
he's
so
linked it nicely back to, some of the mentions that they have in the Danish and German ballads.
yeah, so Carla said the interesting German version, Agnes and the Mermaid, has the Elf King substituted for a merman, and the woman kept captive under the sea instead of in the wood. And the final escape of the woman being agreed with the woman as long as they share the children equally, as they had 7 children. This leads to some gruesome consequences for one of them. And I have in my hand a copy of volume 3, or all 3 volumes, but in my hand now are volume 3 of Prior's Ancient Danish Ballads. Volume 3 and page 329 is, whoops, I've lost the page, 329, Agnes and the Merman. And so I wasn't going to bring this up actually because we found this earlier, but Carl brought it up in Sing Yonder. Therefore, I
Yes,
feel,
exactly.
yeah. Um, a Danish editor thought that the merman was introduced into Denmark from Germany in terms of this song, so maybe it's come from a German origin. I'm just scanning a lot of dense text about it here now. There's about talking about differences between different descriptions of mermen from Danish or other sources, what mermen look like in description. Probable it says it is probable that this tale might be traced to its source in Asia. The story in the Arabian Nights of a woman carried away on the day of her nuptials, enclosed in a glass box and kept by a genius at the bottom of the sea, is like an Eastern version of this. So, who knows? There's that as well. There's all sorts. A lot of these old sort of tales have similarities across countries.
Yes, that's it. And
But here,
it's
but here we have Agnes and the Merman. Let's have a look. How do these verses go? There are no tunes here, but I'm not going to attempt to sing it. But fair Agnes on Hoverland Bridge she stands, as up from the sea a merman lands. Ha, 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 and up from the sea a merman lands. O turn thee, my Agnes, and list to me. Say, wilt thou come and my true love be? Ha, ha, ha. Say, wilt thou come and my true love be? And so what have we got here? I'm gonna attempt to précis this song as I'm going through it. She says, "I will go with you if you'll take me with you." Oh, this is preparing to go underwater. Her ears he stopped, and her mouth he stopped, and down to the bottom of ocean dropped. And 8 years she dwelt down there, and seven under the sea 7 children bare. And while at her cradle she sat to sing, she heard church bells in England ring. So the church bells are in England, even though this is a Danish ballad. Before the merman she went to stand, oh, may I not go on to church? She wants to go to church, basically.
yes. Well, when women had babies, they were classed as unclean, and so they needed to be church. They needed to go to church after, usually within about a month or so, in order to be reaccepted into the church. And that is that is one of the theme of two of the versions in Child, is not that she wants the children to be christened, and she feels she needs to be churched.
Indeed, yes. How many verses? We've got 20 verses. He takes her back to English ground. She goes to the church. Her mother says, "Where have you been these 8 long years?" Even though, oh yeah, it's 8 years, but 7 children. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Where have you been? And says, "I have been on the ocean floor with 7 small sons to the merman bore. The day that he took thee to live with thine." And the mother's saying, "The day that he took thee with him to live, to pay thine honour, what gift did he give?" And she says, he gave me of gold as rich a band as any that glows on the queen's own hand." And then the merman walks into the church, and all the statues all turn round their face to the church's wall. That's quite a nice imagery. The
Yes.
statues turn their faces to the wall, just like that scene in 12 Angry Men. They all turn their backs on the person they don't like. Her um her hair it glittered like purest gold, and blithe and joyous his eyes he rolled. And he basically is coming into the church to take her back again. Come with me, thy seven little children all long for thee. And I think this is her saying, long as they may, their longings are vain. I'll never go back with thee there again. And he says, "Oh, think of the big ones, and think of the small, and think of the infant can hardly crawl," the youngest one. And the ballad ends with her saying, "I think not of big ones, I think not of small, of the infant in cradle think least of all. Ha ha ha, of the infant in cradle think least of all." So it ends with her saying, "I care not for the seven children I bore thee,
Yes.
and presumably I'm staying on here with my mother, and you can go back and, like a male seahorse, you can look after the children yourself,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I'm away, and I'm off." So,
Yes, I've done
the,
my bit, thanks.
yeah, so the Agnes and the Mermaid is more or less that one, but Danish, and about a mermaid rather than a dwarf, a mountain dwarf, or an
Oh,
elf
there are any
king.
number. It's like all of those ones where there's either enchantment or or some sort of mysticism or magic.
Yeah,
I'm sure that you can just trace so many things back.
indeed. I think Aiken is the elf king, isn't he? And then when you get
Yes.
Etin, and then Etin is the mountain dwarf. And I'm not sure. I think young Hastings is just a groom. I think he might just be a
Well, I think
man.
he's a magic. He's certainly magical
Is he a
because
magical man?
he can conduct mists and whatnot.
Oh yes, yeah.
So because he's created a mist and then taken the lady away.
I quite like the merman one though. That's quite good.
Yes,
I like
it's.
all that stuff.
I mean, and as I say, that those two, the last two versions, the B and the C in Child are very church based.
Yeah,
Um, there is an interesting line actually in C as well, which does link back to other similar tales where she wishes she was a grey cat so she could eat the children who she thinks of as rats. So there's certainly a
oh
similarity there within that one, the Danish one that you've just been reading.
yeah.
But then the oldest one says, "Well, hang on a minute, Mum. I tell you what we'll do, and then we'll all go to the church, and everybody can be happy." And I mean that in C it doesn't say what happens to them after that. But in A, they all do go and live back at the royal court. And they name all the children there, where you've got Charles and Vincent, Sam and Dick, and likewise James and John. And the eldest is also young Aiken, which was his father's name.
Right.
So, that's, I think there's a certain probably, obviously the one in the Danish one where she's not interested in the children, is very much, probably the Victorian sensibilities didn't quite like that one as much.
Maybe. Yeah.
So that they all go and live in the back at the court, and then she becomes queen eventually. Would certainly appeal to, or certainly have an appeal to a Victorian audience. But they
Yeah.
did like a bit of magic as well, of course.
Indeed. Indeed. And
In
as
fact,
yeah,
a lot of the stuff, isn't it? A lot of the stuff from these days that we think of as ancient is actually the Victorians creating this magic.
bit of that. Yeah.
In some of the other fantastic Steve Roud books, actually, where he, discusses folklore and how far a lot of it doesn't go back.
Quite so. And even songs we covered earlier in the podcast in season one, we had the two sisters or the cruel sister, and there's in some versions you get the enchanted fiddle or flute or harp.
Yeah,
It's made out of the bones and body parts of one of the sisters, and when that instrument is played, it sings or plays the story of her murder and all that sort of stuff. So it's all there, and that links into what I was going to come to now. There are no field recordings, but we do have two modern recordings, revival recordings, to this century. We've got Gavin Davenport did record Young Hastings, which he based on Child's C text, the third one, the Peter Buchan and Motherwell, I think as well. Young Hastings, which he even Gavin's sleeve notes even points out it's itself related to Tam Lin and Pretty Scarce and oral sources. So even he spotted the link to Tam Lin, and he said that yeah, it comes from Peter Buchan via James Nichol of Stricken, and he said both men. I'm just reading verbatim his sleeve notes here. Both men were well-known rewriters and adapted Scandinavian versions to create theirs, but they are in good company here, as I am not averse to a wee bit of mangling myself. So he's done a bit of a bit of rejigging on that one too,
Yeah.
and that's on a 2010 album called Brief Lives, which is a key album in my folk music history as well, because I'm on that album playing melodion on a song, and that's the first time I ever did a bit of session musician work. It was recorded by a mutual friend of mine and Gavin's, a guy called Tom Wright, and I was in a couple of bands with Tom Wright for quite a while, and yeah, Tom recorded it, and he rang me up and said, well, I lived in Newcastle, and said, "Can you just walk around the corner and come and sit in this bedroom and record melodion on a track?" So
Is
I'm
that the
on.
same Tom that now lives in Sheffield?
It is indeed, yes.
We have my nephew is a sax player, jazz musician, and yeah, so there's always been that sort of connection because
Yeah.
my nephew actually helped Tom kit out the new studio at
Ah,
Yellow.
very good. There we go. Lovely. Lovely. So yeah, Gavin Davenport in 2010 on the album Brief Lives. And then a big one is Jim Moray, was the other one we got, did Hind Etin on a 2012 album called Skulk, which is a very good album. If he's listening, I like that album very much, Jim. And this is a major rewrite, though, and I don't think it bears much relation to Hind Etin, in quotes, the original Hind Etin, if such a thing exists. Jim's sleeve note says, based on various versions of Child 41 with new words and new tune. He said, I've stolen some elements from other ballads to fit. He said, this is what I was about to refer back to. Jim said, the enchanted instrument is a common device in European folklore, from Jack-Orion to the Pied Piper to the magic flute. You know, it's a common thing across all kind of things, that one. And he said, yeah, in some versions, Hind Etin is pardoned over the course of another 20 verses or so, but for reasons of brevity, I decided to let him have it in my final verse. So, yeah, on Skulk in 2012, there is Hind Etin by Jim Moray, but it doesn't sort of line up much with the older versions of Hind Etin. This is Jim using it as kind of a base text and then turning it into something else entirely, I think. But it's worth listening to. It's a nice arrangement, nice rocky arrangement with drums and stuff. So anyway, those two, and then Helen Lindley as well, which we will hear in a minute or so, a few minutes. So I think we've managed to cover ground that wasn't there to start with. So I think we'd better draw this to a close. Thanks again, as always, for coming on and delving into some relatively unknown child ballads. It's been very interesting, I think.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's always great just to be able to have an excuse to sit and go through some old stuff and look for some history and possibly bring a song into usage. I certainly have enjoyed singing it, and I enjoyed writing it. So yeah, it's always a nice thing to do, I think. Let's see if we can revitalise them a little bit.
Indeed so. And yeah, this is your last appearance on this season. Looking ahead, I don't think we've got you until the summer of 2026.
Yes, we said
When
that though, but we said that for the last season.
indeed, but well, this is true. There might actually there might be a couple coming up in the next season or the one after that. Season 5 this autumn or season 6 spring of next year. You never know. There might be. It's all child ballads predominantly, and there are, yes, I'm looking at them and I've never heard of some of them myself. So you never know. I may have to call upon you, but the next time you're definitely being called upon is in the middle of season 7, if we live so long, in the summer of 2026. But you never know before then, and maybe on the Patreon as well. There may be scope for something there. However, in the meantime, though, to finish today's episode, Helen Lindley, thank you very much.
And thank you, Matt.
Lady Margaret sat at her bower door, sewing at her silken seam. She heard a tune in Almonds Wood, and wished she there had been. She threw the seam far from her side, and the needle to her toe. And then she ran to Almonds Wood as fast as she could go. She hadn't pulled at any nut, nor a branch had she broken, till the highest tree in Almonds Wood was pulled up by young Aiken. He put the tree all to the right, built her a bower tall, made it secure and built of stone, and invisible to all. She stayed there in Almonds Wood for many years, it was all told. 7 sons to him she bore, from the youngest to the old. It fell one day that Aiken went hunting with his eldest son, and while they walked along the way, the son asked a question. I see my mother's cheeks are wet, I have rarely seen them dry. I wondered why my mother was continually to cry. Your mother is a king's daughter, sprung from a high degree, and might have wed some wealthy prince if she'd not discovered me. My love for her is most sincere, and her love is great for me. In hardships that she has endured, she does our folly see. It fell upon another day, Aiken hunted alone, and left his children there to stay with their mother at home. The eldest took his mother's hand, and brothers the 6 he led. He rushed them all through Almonds Wood, and out of it they fled. Arriving at her father's gate, Margaret gave the son 3 rings, saying, take these royal rings from me, and give them to the king. The son he passed a proud porter, then he passed a butler boy. A minstrel took him to the king, who looked at him with joy. You look just like my dear daughter, it brings me joy to see. I do look like your dear daughter, as she's a mother to me. And will you tell me, my young boy, where my daughter Margaret is? She's now standing at your gate, and with my brother 6. And so they let the family in. Margaret knelt before the king. Get up, my daughter dear, we'll dine tonight within. Till I my mother and sister see, I can neither drink nor eat. And when she saw the both of them, she fell down at her feet. Get up, they both did say, and we shall dine with thee. I cannot eat, nor can I drink, till my husband do I see. We'll send our rangers brave and bold to search the forest through for he, looking far and looking wide to bring Ekin to thee. The eldest son he then spoke up, no, this can never be. Unless you grant a free pardon, I hope him you'll not see. Well said, my young grandson, I hereby grant a free pardon. They found Ekin in Elmont's wood, clutching his hair golden. Young Ekin, oh, you should come with us, the King's court says it's so. I've lost my lady I love so dear, so with you I will not go. Your lady's at her father's court, and she wants you there to be. Young Ekin went to the King's court for his family to see. For many years at the royal court they live with mirth and glee. And when her father's death did come, Lady Margaret was queen.
That was Helen Lindley singing her brand new setting of Hind Etin called Young Ekin. That brings us to the end of this episode. What did you think? What are your thoughts on the song? I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to get in touch, feel free to drop me an email at intheroud@singyonder.co.uk, or you can visit the podcast on various social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads and Blue Sky. Just search for In the Roud, a folk song podcast. If you are enjoying the podcast, I would really appreciate it if you could give us a little rating and review on wherever you get your podcasts from. On Apple Podcasts, that's there's a star rating out of 5 and a section where you can write reviews. On places like YouTube, that's the subscribe button. If you can subscribe to the podcast, that helps. And there's the thumbs up button. There's a thumbs down button as well, but I hope you don't use that. And there's also the comment section. Please do sort of interact with the podcast in little ways like that. It helps the algorithms to do their bit, and hopefully this podcast will reach a wider audience. That could be fun. If you feel so moved to support the podcast financially, then please do head on over to patreon.com/intheroud, and you can sign up for either £5 or £10 per month and receive weekly bonus content in return. This week, tomorrow, from the date of this episode going out, we're back with the start of our 5th Singer's Choice mini-season. My singer guest for the next 3 episodes will be previous podcast guest Jess Arrowsmith, and the first song she has chosen is Roud 513, Poor Old Horse. Joining us on the history side will be regular contributor Steve Gardam. Sign up to hear this and more at patreon.com/intheroud. In the Roud is a media partner of Veteran, the traditional music label. Although this week's song does not currently feature on any of their releases, you can find details of their extensive catalogue on their website, veteran.co.uk. One last huge thanks to this week's guest, Helen Lindley. Join me next week for episode 4 of this current season. We will be looking at Roud 34, which is child ballad number 43. That's the song The Broomfield Wager. My historical guest will be Brian Peters, and my singer guest will be previous Patreon guest Rachel McShane. Until then, that's it from me. Stay safe, be well, and I'll see you next time in the Roud.